Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. I think there are things that simply can't be measured. Things that have vast relevance and meaning, but are nebulous, numberless and capricious. One of those things is the national tut rate. You know, when you open social media of some sort and the first thing you see is a post from Reform UK and you go, scroll on. Or you see the frog-like visage of Nigel Farage himself and you tut and sigh and maybe hold back a little bit of vomit. Across the nation, many other people have tutted and sighed and rolled on. That is the national tut rate. And as far as Nigel is concerned, it's growing exponentially. So much so that if we could harness the sound and wind generated by the national tut rate increase that Nigel Farage has caused, it could power a small town like Burnley or Clacton. I'm not one that finds irreverence in the downfall of the dastardly, of course, but I can't help thinking that Nigel might have locked himself into a doom spiral. His approval ratings are tumbling fast, and it really doesn't look like there is much on the horizon that could improve his prospects. Not while he's determined to keep his seat in the bumbling clown car of fascist fuckwittery and sheer shitbag's delight that is the presidency of Donald Judas Trump. Anyway, I've got just a few observations I'd like to share right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. Obviously, anybody who claims to want to have their opinion on political matters taken seriously has to be on top of the polls, figuratively, of course. I have various sources that I consult for interest's sake every few days. Now, if you were to have a look at Twitter or any other right-wing gaslighting populist pool of bullshit, you'd think that Reform UK are topping every poll by miles and are about to revolutionise politics in the Western world. Of course, this is coming from the same stinky twatbags that fooled several million people into voting for Reform by blatantly telling them that if they did so, Nigel Farage would be the next Prime Minister, all the foreigners would magically disappear overnight and they'd be special and clever and able to say, "I told you so," to all the woke brigade. You will find that you will get 68% support for Reform if you've gone to a deprived right-wing area that recently kicked out a Tory and asked about 300 people. You will get a result that says 71% of people think Nigel Farage would be a better Prime Minister if you'd only do a poll of 2,000 Reform voters. These are mostly the type of poll results that you'll see Lee Anderson sharing on his various social media sources. But recently, there have been quite a few polls done by proper, real, serious statisticians that have put Farage a few points ahead of all of the competition in popularity. It's fair to say that gathering the results of these polls gives a more serious and believable result because they have a much larger base of answers to pull from and they're from all across the country. That being said, it takes a little while for the results to filter through, a few days. The polls were seeing a surge for support for Nigel Farage because of the results of his followers still being enamoured with Trump and his fetid connections to Farage shortly after he took office. Those connections seem to have changed, however, and the post-Trump Zelensky situation is now bleeding through into the results. Donald Trump was never popular with the British public, but support for him has plummeted lately. This isn't boding well for Nigel. as he does the TV rounds every morning with a little bit of Trump shit on the end of his nose and two big orange stains on each of his cheeks. Sir Keir Starmer, on the other hand, is enjoying his highest approval rating since taking office, according to YouGov polling. He's climbed significantly in approval ratings and continues to do so. Nigel hasn't had such a fortunate turn of affairs, though. The percentage of the public that now say their opinion of Mr Farage is unfavourable has risen to 65%, with just 26% saying that they had a favourable opinion of the frog-faced ignorant bastard. Though only 19% said that they had a favourable opinion of Kemi Badenoch, so that's something he can comfort himself with, I suppose. Imagine your only dose of copium being that you aren't as hated as the most ineffectual and tragic leader of the opposition that we've seen in recent times. Jeremy Corbyn was better than Kemi Badenoch, and he's only got a 53% unfavourable rating, so even he's more popular than old Froggy Chops at the moment. Boo fucking who, eh, Nigel? You twat. Whatever happened to your silent majority? I don't think it ever existed, but there is one answer to why King Nigel of racism has begun to slip so dramatically down the polls, and the answer lies within the seething ranks of reform-tards everywhere. They don't like Donald Trump. Even those who have fallen completely under the spell of the dim-witted, footballified and shitification that bombards them from GBBs and the Daily Mail every day can see that Donald Trump is an absolute arse stain on society and humanity and on anything even remotely decent. And they don't know why their dear leader Nigel Farage can't see that too. And they've started to just ask questions. Before he took office, a survey done among 17,000 of those who claimed to have voted for reform in the general election found that 66% of them had a favourable opinion of the Mango Mussolini himself. Since Trump has taken office and proven himself to be a raving, maniacal, orange shit-gibbon dictator, his approval ratings amongst the same people have fallen to 28%. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with the remaining 28%, but we're talking about reform voters here, and most of them are dumber than a box of hair, so I suppose there is that. Some of them are genuinely stupid enough to think that they want fascism as well, and some of them are actual fascists, of course. It's easy to see why Nigel's numbers aren't looking too good, isn't it? Hard to claim to be a patriot when everything you say sounds like it could have come straight out of the mouth of a babushka wearing a Ushanka in Sevastopol. Bit difficult to convince Dave in Wetherspoons or Paul in his white van that you're on his side when you're standing up for people like Trump or people like JD Vance, who recently did something that is literally the opposite of Nigel's favourite techniques. He criticised the armed forces, and still Nigel couldn't bring himself to condemn his words. In fact, it turns out he's jolly good chums with JD Vance, and he has been since 2012. What a fucking shocker. Fuck's sake. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I just wanted to make it a short one, but there's not a lot in the news to be cheery about at the moment. So I thought you might enjoy learning about Nigel's dwindling numbers. I know it can be hard to find at the moment, but sometimes a bit of optimism and a chuckle can make your day a little bit less of a grind, can't it? Even when the sun is behind the dark clouds that are gathering and drifting across the Atlantic, or floating menacingly on the horizon in the east, and it seems like all hope is lost. If you look hard enough, you can usually find a little silver lining somewhere. If you've gotten that from me today and you'd like to support the channel, all the links to PayPal, Patreon, and Buy Me a Coffee and everything are singing in the rain in the descriptions box. And as always, the join button for memberships is below. Now, that isn't all, I have to say, but thankfully for Farage, it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra-la. Even when the sun is behind the dark clouds that are gathering and drifting across the Atlantic, or floating menacingly on the horizon in the east, and it seems like all hope is lost, if you look hard enough, you can grasp a silver lining. And that was a bit fucking poetic, wasn't it?